Hello Internet and future me. Today is Friday, January the 20th, and I'm coming to you sitting on top of a gigantic pink puppy to bring you my video of the Tour de Nerdfighting Bethesda stops. Lots of people have posted clips from the Tour de Nerdfighting Bethesda stop and all the other stops, and I'll probably also post clips, but I also wanted to sort of put all of my clips together into one actual record of the event as it happened to me for future reference, and so that the event in all its glory may live on into posterity. When I got home for break, I discovered that I actually had a few Nerdfighter friends IRL, so we met up and all drove down to Bethesda, and we got there right at 5:30, which is when the will call line opened, so we just panicked and parked in the first place we found, which will become relevant later, and then we finally got into the building. Well, we got in front of the building, we took some pictures with the tour bus, and then we got into the building and we got in line.
This is the line out into the street, and we're at the end of the line. We barely got here before 5:30. Here's the rest of the will call line. We're finally moving up. This is really exciting. Here's Jacqueline. Hopefully we'll get our tickets and books soon. People are already screaming and being let in over there. So hopefully we'll be through this very quickly and into the room.
The line was long, but it was really amazing. Because there were three of us, we were able to leave one or two people in line and go and disperse through the crowd and talk to Nerdfighters, which was great. Meeting people you know on Facebook in real life, meeting real live DC Nerdfighter celebrities, that was fantastic. People from the internet signs, and of course, we had musical interludes.
Your whole life without light, you can't hit the dish. If you've only ever eaten fish, you can't be alone. If it's something that I know.
We also saw people with Doctor Who shirts and Nerdfighter capes and dressed as the actual Doctor, and it was absolutely amazing to get to see all of these Nerdfighters in one place in the actual world. We got to meet Hanksock, which was lovely, and I really hope that most of the people in that room were Nerdfighters, because if they weren't, I don't know what they thought was going on.
It's Hanksock. You may have heard of me. I'm kind of a big deal on the internet. I see a lot of flashing lights and some little, camera blinkies out there. I'd like to say thank you for doing that. Get as close as you can. I'll stay real close in the middle here so you can get a good shot. I want to see those. Tag me on Facebook, okay? So I had never met John Green before a few days ago. I live at Hank's house. He's a pretty nice guy. But I knew John Sock, who's my brother. We lived with John, but tragically, he was mauled to death by a West Highland White Terrier. A little confused about why you're laughing.
After that, we got to hear a little bit from John about Tifios and also about just his philosophies on writing and life in general, including what I think is some prime material for some John Green Odyssey Iliad fanfiction, which I completely endorse 100%.
It's extremely important because you're going to die. And not only are you going to die, everyone you know and love is going to die, and all of their descendants will die, and there will come a time when there are no human beings to remember that any of us ever did anything. And so any attempt, any idea that you have in your mind that you're going to live your life for some posterity, for some eternality, for that somehow something that you're going to do in your life will result in your immortality is wrongly based on the idea that the sun is not going to explode. That's very, very important because a lot of the way that I think we orient our lives is toward this idea of leaving a legacy or making a sacrifice or doing something that will result in our being remembered forever. As if the idea of forever is not extremely problematic. Like, whenever we think about that stuff, we never think about how incredibly problematic the idea of forever is. And so that's the first thing that I want to say as background. So Gus gives Hazel this video game novelization that she actually turns out to like. It's pretty good video game novelization as video game novelizations go. It's about this guy, Staff Sergeant Max Mayhem, who's always going to war and making wonderful sacrifices on behalf of his team, but then of course at the end he miraculously survives anyway. And that, I mean, first-person shooter video games are in many ways like the contemporary epics of our culture. So where the Greeks had the Odyssey, and where you know other like where Shakespearean age had Romeo and Juliet, our epic, tragic, you know, story is the story of the guy who goes to war and has to make terrible sacrifices in order to save his buddies and or his country. And so when we indulge that fantasy, which I think, by the way, is like totally healthy, and I don't have a problem with it, and I play first-person shooter games, we are buying into a very specific idea of what constitutes heroism and what constitutes like a well-lived life. That the best thing that you can do in this world is a grand, romantic gesture. Even if it kills you, that it's worth it to do this big, huge, romantic gesture. And our epics have always told us that, right? Like, Odysseus comes home after like all this time on the road, and he gets back home. For those of you who don't know, I'm talking about this old Greek poem. You don't actually need to know anything about it in order for me to understand the rest of what I'm going to say, but you should read it, it's good. So Odysseus comes home, and like, he's been gone for a long, long time. And he comes home and his wife has some suitors who are like hanging out at the house and like eating his food and stealing his money and everything. And he's angry, as anyone would be, but, and then the rivers run with blood.
Sorry, I didn't actually get the bulk of the Odyssey discussion in there like I thought I did, because I was busy switching memory cards on my camera, which can only take about 1.5 minutes of video per memory card. When I had finished, by the time I had finished doing that, we had moved on to talking about the inspiration for Tifio specifically, and talking about Esther Earl.
Who had terminal cancer, and when I met her, although I didn't know it at the time, and then over the course of the next 3 years, you know, I grew to know her and be very good friends with her, and be close to a lot of her closest friends in our community. And it wasn't so much Esther's illness that was an inspiration to me, it was Esther's empathy. I think what I needed was to meet an empathetic teenager. I say that lovingly.
John talked a bit more about empathy and what it's like to be a teenager, and I think most of the people in the room understood that it's difficult to be empathetic when you're a teenager, seeing as most of us were or had very recently been teenagers. And after that discussion, we sort of wrapped it up, and then it was time to move on to the next part of the show.
So it is now my pleasure to bring to the stage the founding editor of EcoGeek, the world's most famous environmental technology website. He is the creator of the Project for Awesome, YouTube's annual charity event. The co-founder of DFTBA Records. He is a
I know I'm not the only one who wants to know more about Harry's sons. I really do think there's an unwritten story, and I think it's time to put fingers to keys. A lot of people I know want to know more about Grindelwald and Dumbledore. I really do think that they both bad and lefty, and I think there's probably a good story there for book 8. I want a bouquet, I want a bouquet, and I want J.K. Rowling to say that the epilogue was crap, cause we all know it was crap, and I want J.K. Rowling to say that Voldemort had a son, and the story's just begun, and I want J.K. Rowling to say that she's writing book 8.
Hank played for a while, which I didn't actually get to film very much of because we were dancing, and then John came back on to tell us that the Yeti had driven down from New York just to come to our event over all of the other events on the tour.
Let's say a quick hello now. Okay.
Oh, you troll! This is now funny. You're such a troll! What a troll!
We're strangers to love.
A lot more happened that night, which I didn't get footage of. John got shocked, they did questions, Hank played some more, we had the giant 500 miles dancing montage, which I'm sure other people have captured on film. You should go find those clips, they're pretty fantastic. It was pretty fantastic to be there and to experience them. After that, we pretty much waited to get in the signing line. We were some of the last people, so we had to wait quite a while. We actually didn't get in the signing line until about midnight, but we passed the time. My friends and I made a little origami box and filled it with fish puns on the title of John's books, which is an excellent way to spend your time if you're ever bored and have time to spend. We got to the signing line. We were pretty nervous going up there, you know, meeting your heroes, but actually meeting John and Hank, of course they were extremely sweet to us, seeing as how tired they were. But I was also surprised by how natural it felt to actually meet them, because I think when your heroes are YouTube celebrities, you have a bit of a different relationship than if your heroes are movie stars or singers that you only ever see on interviews or from a distance at the back of an auditorium. I think when your hero is a YouTube celebrity, you kind of know what it feels like to talk to them face to face. It feels like you do it on a regular basis, so meeting John and Hank was very exciting, but wasn't as frightening, and I wasn't as starstruck as I expected to be. We get out of the signing line with all of our swag to find that our car had been taken hostage by the garage, which had closed at 11, so we ended up trucking it out to University of Maryland, and I spent the night with a friend's boyfriend, and we spent all the next morning getting bagels and hanging out with University of Maryland Nerdfighters, and it actually, while it was inconvenient to have our car taken hostage, it actually turned out to be a really excellent experience. So I hope that those of you who got to go had as much fun as I did, and I hope that everyone else continues to have fun in Nerdfighteria, and best wishes, and as always, DFTBA.